Shall we play a game?
We got one person online. The workload is enough for like 10 users. I think we got a hacker.
Shall we play a game?
It is May the 22nd. It is 07:35, and this is your morning brief. So looking around the world, it's kind of interesting. We're seeing a couple of local privilege escalations. What's interesting was that apparently the same user is saying there's more 0 days to come. And these are kind of privilege escalations. So it's not remote code execution, but local privilege escalation using the system, by looks of it, using some part of the task scheduler to execute its malware to elevate privilege. Why is that really important? Well, because if you've got someone clicking on something on a desktop, then obviously they can execute something and run something just by clicking on it, and it's going to run a system privilege. So, what we try and do is look for these ways to be able to elevate privilege if we are a user to gain system. Then from system, obviously, we can start dumping memory access and other items if these guys aren't local admin or if their privilege is restricted. And so that's why always role-based security is good. But you've also got to prevent, escalation. So I used to know a lot of admins that were like, well, it's not remote code execution. It's not really the biggest deal. Well, it is because, again, we've got these wonderful things called users that, no matter how good your security awareness training is, someone's going to click. Whenever you do kind of phishing, I would always do a what if. Even if you do a phishing, it's like, oh, we got a 0% click rate. You got a 0% click rate on one particular phish email. If you're able to do multiple different phish emails, pretty much you're going to get an execution on a desktop. The other news really that's just, flying around. Baltimore's still recovering, and again, that's hard to do. When you get hit by ransomware, anyone that's worked in local government knows how hard it is. Usually limited resources, and it's kind of a monolithic organization. It's very much the appearance of doing everything correct, but it's that desktop, that's usually the most vulnerable part of local governments. And, it's getting better, but, as I say, it takes a while. They've been hit pretty hard recently and a couple of times. The other thing was I noticed that Google was resetting some passwords, basically storing them unhashed, plain text. They're saying no one actually accessed it, so it's not the biggest deal in the world. However, just the mere fact of storing this stuff in plain text is bad. It's kind of funny sometimes when you do a test, you find so many passwords that, some of these are like, 5 years old, 2 years old, 1 year old. You don't, you're trying to work out which ones haven't been changed, which one. Some companies are so bad that they become good, because they obviously when you try a bad password, hopefully they got an alert that triggers on something. But usually if they're that bad, they tend not to alert on anything. So that really is a lot of what's going on. We've seen this local privilege escalation, and we've seen, a couple of compromises still continuing. Interestingly, a good friend of mine sent me a proof of concept for the RDP 3389. I'm still waiting to hear back. I'm going to reach out to him today. So I know he's trying it out. So, the code is out there. So what we talk about, patch. And as I said, if you've got Sophos, sometimes it's hanging those things. There's been some updates for Sophos. So update Sophos, then patch your Windows. And there was another actually talk about, some of the Windows systems still hanging some of some Windows systems still hanging literally after being patched. So that's not necessarily the best thing. Hey, but this is the way it works. You always, if you're going to patch something, don't just roll out the patches, test it on a system, reboot the system. Don't just, test it on a system and leave it running. Reboot it a couple of times, see how it works, and then basically you can start rolling it out to different divisions, maybe a section by section or division by division, so that if you roll it out to the entire company all in one fell swoop, you're not going to end up with a big mess if something does go wrong, because let's face it, there's been a lot of cases. Anyway, this is 07:39. It is still May the 22nd, and that was your morning brief.
Shall we play a game?
We got one person online. The workload is enough for like 10 users. I think we got a hacker.